It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
To this, welcome back to the program. We got the senator from District 5. We got Bryan King with us. Bryan, thanks for being on, sir.
Hey, glad to be on, Paul.
So just can I get your reaction? I mean, we had the public corruption trial of Jon Woods is over, found guilty on 15 to 17 counts. I think there's a lot more corruption that is yet to come out with not just this, but I mean, there's just a lot of tributaries that I think affect a lot of people. You've been speaking out against the corruption in Little Rock for a long time. So what's your reaction to the results that we saw yesterday in court?
Well, I think that's just, I think when you look at the whole picture, all this is about GIF mostly. And certainly, I can tell you, as I've said over and over again to the people back home in my district, I have not profited off of any GIF project, nor have they done business back with the farm, nor have I defended anybody in a trial. And, I'm just saying, Paul, this thing has been going on for years down there. And when we look at the Medicaid part, I mean, what happened in the trial yesterday? But if you look at what came out the other day, and in the other court filing, and you have other senators being named, and this Medicaid entity that continues to have, it seems to have very deep and possibly big personal financial ties to, and let's give the Arkansas Times credit. They're the ones reporting on this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why the other media is not, but, I think Senator Hutchinson and Senator Lamoureux, former Senator Lamoureux, need to answer questions. I mean, this thing of, not disclosing, and this is why these guys, Senator Hutchinson was one of the biggest fighters of Medicaid disclosure in the whole Senate. He was probably the biggest one. And now we're finding out why.
I think you're right, and he also was very much opposed to an attempted, I think it was either a bill or amendment, I can't remember, by Senator Linda Collins Smith that was trying to clarify that attorneys can't pass bills for their clients, and I was in the chamber when he spoke out against that from the Senate floor. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Out why.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, and I was talking with Josh Waters, who was in the trial yesterday and the entire time of the trial, and he seemed to think that there was now that there may be state loopholes as far as the Ethics Commission is concerned with attorneys passing bills for clients, but as far as the feds go, they're now really looking into this concept of, being on retainer or, working at this place and being a full-time legislator, but you're an attorney. I mean, what exactly are you making your money for? Or, how are you making your money? What value do you have? And I think we're really starting to uncover, we're kind of, I feel like, at the stone feet of a giant statue. We just haven't looked up yet at just how much special interest really does control things in an underhanded way, and they're making people rich off of it.
Yeah, and I just posted up on Facebook, and we keep hearing this campaign rhetoric and spin and everything, and I'm running against a lawyer, and I'm a farmer, so a farmer produces results. A lawyer, a bad lawyer, just sits there and throws out rhetoric and tries to make things stink, of something else, and trying to get you to focus off of something else other than what's really going on, and try and point out problems with somebody else instead of tackling their own issues. And, I just put out, we've spent, I think, over $100,000 of your tax dollars to these guys down there of trying to keep the FBI from getting records. Okay, when I sit there, we had a meeting last night on this $18 landfill issue. You have another situation of Senator Hutchinson, once again, he inserted language in a bill, and he won't answer my questions about repayment of bondholders. And let me give you back history. We had a landfill issue go bad. Some things possibly went on that. You have legislation run sneakily in 2014 attached to appropriation bill that I didn't vote for, that my opponent supported. And basically it's snake bit the people back here that are going to pay for a service. But there was concern about why did Senator Hutchinson, put language in worrying about repaying of bondholders up here in an ADQ appropriation bill, and obviously ADQ was okay with it. So I sent Senator Hutchinson, respectfully, asked him some questions, and he's declined to comment. Or hasn't commented so far about why he cared so much that the bondholders and these big money interests, he felt like they should be paid back to the point that he even put it into law.
Yeah.
So, I mean, once again, I'm just leaving it open. You know, he has a chance to answer about why he did that. I mean, this wasn't even in his district, wasn't even close to his district. So there's a lot of questions, and last night we found out that Speaker Gillum tried to tell House members not to show up at the meeting. So this thing of down there in Little Rock, this culture that's going on, is not just what's happened. It's how, once again, they've continually stopped Medicaid disclosure. Okay, they're continually using your tax dollars to try and keep the Justice Department and the FBI from getting your records. They're then trying to take out the people that's been speaking the truth against what's been going on down there.
Yep.
I mean, it is a whole gamut of things down there that this bunch is trying to do to keep from doing it, and they don't want to talk about it. And once again, like I said, give the Arkansas Times credit. They're the ones digging into this thing, and look what they exposed the other day about Senator Hutchinson and Senator Lamar.
Yeah, they certainly did. Now, we're talking with Senator Bryan King. This is interesting, Brian. You know, you're talking about the Bureau of Legislative Research. The Arkansas Legislative Council approved for them to hire outside counsel to deal with the request, is how they put it, from the FBI trying to get the emails that the BLR has between themselves and the legislator. The BLR says, well, the reason we need outside counsel to comply with what the FBI is wanting is because we don't want to upset the legislators because we may have to work with them in the future. And I think at this point, after everything that came out in the Jon Woods trial, the BLR needs to realize that, no, you don't work for the legislators. You work for the people. You are.
Yeah, but I think that they really do work for the legislature, Paul. I think that unfortunately people down there, and it's just like the GIF projects. Whether you want to talk about GIF, it should be used or this. You know, as I said last night, and I continue to say, the people that did the GIF and used it correctly, guess what? You know, there's nothing wrong with it. And so you keep having my opponent who, you know, keeps defending Warren Paris, you know, as innocent, right up until he pled guilty. I mean, he's on his legal team. And then he comes back and says, well, I didn't really know what was going on until here recently. And so it's just trying to absolve yourself from everything that went on with it. And I think that when it comes to the Bureau, you know, they have a job to do. They work for the legislators, which means they work for the people. But the reality is it's the legislators that have put everybody in this situation.
So
it's the legislators that have the bad actors that participate in this GIF stuff that, you know, gave money to it. It's the bad actors that do personal business with these Medicaid entities and continually don't want people knowing about what they're going on and how they're profiting.
So your opponent, Bob Ballinger, you bring up the fact that his law firm does represent Ecclesia College, and I know this has come up, in the debates and everything else. And this is all, Ecclesia is not releasing the records. I want to talk about his FOIA law here in a minute because I feel like that's interesting. But you've mentioned Medicaid disclosure several times, and right now during this primary season and all of the corruption that's on display, it's in the headlines every single day. The people want transparency. You have tried several times to get Medicaid entities that are paying these legislators to disclose if they're paying them for consulting fees or whatever, making this extra money, and it fails constantly. And last session, it went before the state agencies committee, and the chair was now your opponent, Bob Ballinger, and he did not vote for it. He did not offer an amendment for it. And so why do you think that is, Brian?
Well, and I think let's get in this. There are people, and everyone is fallible that runs for office, including myself. Everybody makes mistakes, screw-ups, and bad judgments, everything. That's not what we're talking about here or what's going on. We're talking about whenever these entities start making headlines, there needs to be questions answered. I mean, you have corruption. You have corruption going with GIF. You don't have just the business ties of the college. I mean, Al Hollingsworth, who purchased the land, there needs to be a bigger net of questions now related to the college because they could, quite frankly, it could have been the college not doing business with legislators. It could have been an outside entity. We see with the Springfield group up there, Paul, where this nonprofit did business with another entity that entity turned. So they could say, no, I didn't do anything with that. But there are so many ways that things could be funneled and done. I don't know that you can cast a big enough net other than people start answering questions and being forthright in it. And once again, when it comes to GIF projects, here's the thing. Don't do business with if an entity that we gave to the Bearville Community Center gave $40,000 to or whatever, and all of a sudden they want to come out here and do business with our farm. The answer is no. Okay, and so it's just about trying to get to the bottom of things, and it's like, well, we don't like this. There's always an excuse not to do Medicaid disclosure. There's always an excuse not to answer all questions and everything like that. And then next thing you know, you have Senator Hutchinson, Senator Lamoureux, and we had Senator Lamoureux get $120,000 out of a Faith and Freedom PAC for recruiting candidates and informing people on issues. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought you were already paid by the taxpayers to do that. And so, it's this, and this, and it keeps coming out and out and out. And yet the Little Rock culture is there's nothing to see here until it comes out, and then all of a sudden you're like Senator Hendren, I'm committed to integrity.
Yeah.
It's very questionable about how much and how deep the deniability and the culture is down there of the leadership. As I mentioned, Speaker Gillum sent out an email to get members not to look into this landfill issue that I'm going to tell you, there's just as much stink with the people involved with this landfill issue that affects 6 counties and the taxpayers for several years to come.
Well, yeah,
there are these Medicaid entities.
Yeah, and if what you
said is right, they want to keep you from looking into it.
Yeah, then that's unforgivable. And what you said is correct about Jeremy Hutchinson putting that in the bill. And essentially, what that was, folks, was a way for the bondholders to have no risk. So if everything went bad, which it did, and everybody knew it was going to when they got into this landfill deal, now the people of these, northern central Arkansas, that they're now having to pay a tax increase that was imposed on them by a Pulaski County judge. So these investors recoup their costs. I mean, and it's the definition of a tyranny. Now, you mentioned Senator Jim Henry. We're talking with Senator Bryan King and how he is the next president pro temp. He's going in. He's the governor's nephew. I'm very worried about the integrity of the Senate, Brian. I think it's maybe more of a state agency under the governor now because you do have the familial relation. But when he says, I'm committed to getting the Senate back to integrity, that's in the wake of Jon Woods. That's in the wake of Jake Files. But could it get even worse? And is that why he is saying that? And here's the thing. It's comical to me that he says it because just like everybody kind of knew, everybody knows the people that are down there carving out a financial niche for themselves, but nobody wants to say anything about it. It's like if he wants to, restore the integrity, he could just start pointing fingers, and because I think a lot of people know when you're down there making money off the taxpayer.
Yeah, I think, like I said, look how many headlines, and people were speaking out. There's been questions asked down there and things going on for years, but unfortunately it just has to come out. And, look at Senator Files, for example. I mean, another example of like I said, once somebody's accused, that's one thing, but to start asking questions about things and is not out of line. And then you mentioned the FOI bill. That's another issue that's big in our race up here.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Okay, so at a debate the other night, the member of the Press Association corrected your opponent, Bob Ballinger, and said that they did oppose his bill that would have gutted FOIA. Well, and let me just, so I don't get corrected, it was Senator Bart Hester's bill, but it was Bob Ballinger's amendment that focused on colleges and everything else. So, and of course, you've got Ecclesia that doesn't want to give up documents under freedom of information. So it's just very, very peculiar. But he says he didn't know that the Press Association was opposed to it in the debate. Is that true, that he didn't know?
No, that's not true. I mean, the Press Association was down there in the halls. They fought this to the bitter end. As he had to be corrected at the Madison County debate by a member of the Press Association, that, yes, they did oppose the bill. I mean, there's you can look at the committees, you can look at the newspaper headlines, you can look at everything. That is a complete falsehood. And it is inexcusable to be trying to tell the people back home. And it's just the same thing about why they don't like people like me. It's because they go down there and they vote one way and they do something and say something, and they come back home and say something else. And, you know, we're going to be producing the videos of exactly what happened. And I don't like running these type of campaigns, but the way Bob has run a slanderous campaign, he spends 75% of his time trying to mislead people about my record. For example, the non-votes. Well, most of the non-votes are on appropriation bills, and I'll just put out on Facebook. Folks, if you go down there and you look at the culture of corruption down there and cronyism and what's going on and headline after headline, you know, if you go down there and make deals and just rubber stamp things and you have a get along, go along, as we see with the $18 issue, as we see with the corruption, we see with all the people on Medicaid, the big insurance companies hiring people, friends of legislators. You know what? If you go down there to get along, and you're just rubber stamping things, and you want that kind of way of doing things, guess what? We see time and time again that people lose. And that's why people voted Donald Trump in. Because they don't want, they're tired of this down there. But unfortunately, the media down there is not getting after this and pointing out all this stuff like they should.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so blatantly obvious that it literally has to be so blatant that they have to do something.
I think, would you agree that every single one of you guys needs to be asked if you're now a consultant, now that you're a legislator, you're being paid as a consultant by some Medicaid entity? I think everybody should have to answer that question on the record.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. I think, you know, did you profit off of GIF, you know, entities that receive GIF? Did you do business with them? Did you do business with any other, you know, just like I said, in the land deal up there, you know, the individual? I mean, I think there's deeper and farther questions now have to be asked about, you know, the involvement, who you were involved with.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't participate in that in the
We got
college.
20 seconds.
I can tell you, you know, everybody knows all of our GIF projects got scrutinized. You look at the FOI bill, how, you know, we'll see the video of my opponent being corrected, and then turns around a few days later and had an opportunity to turn around and correct the record again, and he didn't do it.
All right,
And
Senator
he went
Bryan
ahead
King.
and said the Press Association didn't oppose the bill.
Senator Bryan King, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks.
Johnny Cash Friday, everybody.